Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second reading of our 23rd Annual National Poetry Reading Month series. We are grateful to you for watching and grateful to our readers for sharing their time with us. Today, we welcome three poets, Irene Ayala, George Perrault, and Courtney Cliften. Now, I will turn things over to our capable host, poet Sean Griffin.
Thanks, Emily. And thank you to everybody out there in Etherville. I appreciate you tuning in for our second reading this month, our 23rd year of having poetry at Sundance. I want to give a big shout out to the Sundance crew. We had a wonderful start to the month last week with Dave Lee, and Gail Marie gave a rousing introduction. We have three wonderful poets tonight. Courtney Cliften will start our evening. Irene Ayala will follow her, and George Perrault will close the night. Next week, on the 20th, we have MJ Ubando, Ismael Santillanes, and Tom Masheri. I'm thrilled that we can do this once again. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I know it's hard with Zoom, and it's been hard with COVID, but I'm really thankful you're here, and we're going to have a great afternoon. With that, I'd like to introduce Courtney Cliften. She was raised in the Nevada desert, and she writes, she's working on her MFA at UNR. Her poems have appeared in The Meadow, Helen Literary Magazine, an anthology of emerging poets, The Hunger and Caustic Frolic, and more. Please give a warm welcome to Courtney Cliften.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody who's tuning in this evening, and thank Sundance and especially Emily for making this happen. And then I also want to thank Sean for being a mentor to me and inviting me to participate in this wonderful event. So I'll get started. Sean recently featured this first poem on his radio show, and he read it beautifully. I'm not sure if I can do as good of a job, but I'm going to just go for it anyway. So the first poem is called I Know You Like Water. As usual, I was thinking of you and the desert rocks on my bookshelf. You decided to put them in a corked bottle with water, which is so like you, to take something out of context to make it prettier. Like the books of poetry on your toilet that you read to me while I soaked in the lavender bath, the old coffee can you used to grow fresh rosemary on the windowsill. I even think of your garden, the one you had before I knew you. I think of you smelling of tomato vines and basil. I think of your hands in the dirt, the shape of your wrists as you untangled the hose for watering, or how you, always hungry, ate a radish straight from the ground. I did not know you back then, but I could tell you a story about water, how it knows everything from the dinosaurs and eels to every garlic field or houseplant. Water knew you then, and it will know you later, long after you've left. What a great time to be alive or even dead. Next, so there's an exercise I do when I'm really not sure what to write about that day. It's basically just to sit and dump out on the page a list of all the things that you do and don't believe in. And I find that it generally has a way of pulling out my current obsessions, even when I'm not aware of what I've been obsessing over. So this is one of the poems that came from that exercise. I just titled it, I Believe. I believe we're all pretty worried about dying and how best to pray when it's bottom of the night. I believe I don't spend enough money on wine and that lipstick should be the color that your lips already are. I believe it's been an entire year since I locked my keys in the car and that every word association game eventually ends in hot soup. I don't believe all cats are girls and all dogs are boys anymore, but I do believe all winged animals were women in past lives. I believe the E chord is prettiest, but A minor is most relatable, and I believe I'll be more honest when my parents are dead. If I believed in postage stamps anymore, I'd have nowhere to go. I believe in being okay and not okay at the same time, in handwritten poems about brick houses and a lace bra beneath an oversized sweater. I believe in the moon and looking at it as often as possible, but especially when it's full. I've believed in God 3 times, just in case. When I was little, I was always almost drowning, because I believed my blood was river. I believe my blood is river. Okay, the next poem is one that just kind of came out of nowhere for me. I actually don't have a lot to say about it, so I'm just going to read it. This is Confessional. I'm sorry to the dead coyote on the side of the road. I am sorry to the trail of ants behind the kitchen sink. And I am sorry to the ducks who mistake machine sounds for mating calls. I think every bird feather I find is a message or a sign, so I collect them all in the cup holder of my car, sometimes in the jean pocket where I keep old gas station receipts. I am sorry to the trees for all of the gas station receipts. I am sorry I am always wanting to die and then changing my mind like how dandelions make a wish. What are the birds trying to tell me? Why am I always saving things like I might need them later? Here, look at these wings. The next poem I want to read to you all is, it's going to be a love poem, and it's dedicated to my sister Mari. This is called The Way Things Fit. On the phone, she says it straight. Get a therapist this week. Spares me the lecture like she really means grow up, like she really means love. For the most part, she's the one with her shit unbelievably together, though she puts too much pepper on her yellow foods and a ton of salt on anything else. She likes things placed neatly together in a list or a basket, a found container that seems to have been made for exactly what she uses it for, though I'm sure she's the first to use it this way. I've been spared a life of clutter and trinkets without homes, which is anything out of place. Even me, 2 years ago, after I crashed my car, a spiderweb of bones in my kneecap, a mosaic of an ankle, a left leg held together by a cast and her rose petal palms, careful not to let it hyperextend while water rushes over us both. Me naked, her fully clothed after a shift at her real job, but eager to rinse the thick week off my skin. We both know she's the only one who remembers to keep adjusting the temperature knob as the water heater cools. At night, she brings lavender lotion, warms patchouli over flame, knows best how to prepare for rest, dreams, the only escape from our mother either of us have known for years. And though I have been spared too many times to remember or count, I place a coin in a coin-sized container each morning, put my ear up real close, and listen as it falls perfectly into place. So I am lucky enough to have a few great mentors in the writing community here in Reno. Obviously, one of those people is Sean, so thanks again for having me tonight. But one woman, Melanie Parrish, she's a very fine poet. She's been in my life over the past 5 years or so, and we get together once a week and we share poems. And she's a generous reader and she's a generous human in general, and just being in her presence makes me feel like I'm living in a poem. So this next one I'm going to read is for her, and it's titled Sit With Me on Your Front Porch. Remind me that I'm not unlike the sky, and she has much to say. I will tell you how many dead animals have appeared in my love poems this week. Pluck your most ripe tomato, keep it for yourself, which is to say, I am learning to love in separate ways. Ask about my mother. I will tell you the coordinates where I was born. Remind me how the stars leave room for improvisation, and I will argue. Let me win until tomorrow's email. When you write, tell me to stop making poems about cigarettes. Tell me there are more settings than in bars or underneath streetlights. Make yourself the subject of my next poem by showing me to say no without I'm sorry. Show me what it's like to be both light and dark and still me. Again, please, remind me that I'm not unlike the sky. Give me just 1 second. I'm actually going to read one more love poem tonight. I guess it's kind of my theme for the night. I'm just really into the relationships that I have in my life, especially those with strong and vulnerable women. So this next one is dedicated to Christina. A love poem for her. She's a sepia filter in ripped jeans and 3 days without a shower. She just moved to a new apartment 3 blocks east of the Truckee because she likes the yellow door. When she drinks, she calls the kid with the skateboard who rehabs in Mexico, and she cries on her new front porch until her friends come over, help her hang the curtain rod while she walks topless around the living room, trying to work the new ceiling fan. She's late night Chinese takeout and early morning bubble baths. She's full moon rituals and long conversations about the probability of reincarnation. Her mother took a dive off the Harrah's top floor parking garage when she was 6, and her father gave her $20 the only time they ever met. She's McCormick and Camel filters and a salary job as a writer. She has a playlist on Spotify for that exact moment in middle school when she lost her virginity to the boy who said he was just taking one for the team. She has another playlist for the time she saw her neighbor's cat give birth, and another one just for the color yellow. She's midnight drives to the desert, always to the top of the water tower, so she can feel the stars on her cheeks, spread her arms wide, imagine her mother had given her wings. Okay, so I'm winding down here, so I only have 2 more to read this evening. The next one is fairly long compared to the previous work. But in Steve Gerke's workshop this semester, we're working on a long poem, which she describes as anything like 10 pages or longer. And so I thought I would read a section from that project just to see if I like it or if it works or whatever. My working title at the moment is Not a Breakup Poem for the New Year. And I'm just going to read from the very first section. So this is First Morning 2022. I sip flat champagne out of a coffee mug and put on a record. Nothing edgy, just like something I picked up in Midtown because the hot cashier said it was a hot record. Last night, I didn't drink at all, just drove my friends around to various bars with various people talking about whatever people talk about when they're expected to talk. Except nobody talked to me. I suppose I'm good at that, being unapproachable when I want to. We parked the car at 11:56 and stared at our phones until we saw fireworks in the distance at 11:59. Time is never right. It's not even real. Like, I am old, but I'm not even 30. I will be, and then I will just be essentially the same as the day before when I was 29. Do you know what I'm saying? I was dumped last year. I guess that's why I woke up to 4 poetry collections splayed across the side of the bed he used to sleep on. Wait, no, I don't mean to be dramatic about it. It's just that everyone was in love last night and kissing and dancing, and I was thinking about the time I tattooed the wrong word on his calf, but he ended up liking it better. And when he brushed my hair and took off my makeup with a wet rag so I could stay in bed, shoveling popcorn into my face by the fistful. My friends are always talking shit about him, told me that in the new year, I'll realize for myself how lame he is, like as if 2022 will erase the heaviness just because the calendars are all new. Heaviness doesn't seem like the best description. Let me try again. It's more like emptiness, like relating best to grayscale. Like if you cracked an egg and the shell just disintegrated and rose like smoke out the cracks of my shitty apartment's stone walls. This was never meant to be a breakup poem, but here we are. My feet got so cold last night, I almost let my friend Penny put my toes in her mouth. Max accidentally went live on Instagram and sent a text that just said, Joe Biden. Christina did the adorable thing where she adds dots to the outer corner of her winged eyeliner, and somebody looked at me for too long. So I mouthed, I hate you in his direction, but I'm not sure if he understood. Anyway, the bottle of champagne only cost $5 and it was a screw top, which is anticlimactic, but stores better overnight in my fridge, which I praise today while I stay in my underwear, kill the batteries in my vibrator, and try to think of a New Year's resolution that will keep me alive long enough to be 30. But like I said, time isn't real, like infinity. My brain has an infinite heart, but it's never been absorbed. I didn't eat anything today, again, but I promised my therapist I'd quit this habit, so I'm reminded of Melanie's garden, as I usually am when I think of food I'd like to eat or people I'd like to love. I'd like to be like Melanie, grow older without children, have a house full of books and a garden full of peonies and tomatoes. I'd like to wake up on the first day of a new year and feel time's warm breath on my neck, like a song I wasn't tricked into liking, like an actual champagne flute with a fragile but attractive stem. I'd like to believe in the concept of time, like it could sweep the heaviest seasons from my eyelids, use its little units of measurement to file the two sharp thorns of the flowers into fingers, clutching at my throat, gently, like not enough bubbles. Okay, this is my very last piece for the night. Thank you so much for everyone who's tuning in. I'm so glad that you all are here. But this last one I'm going to read is a very recent poem, so maybe still a work in progress, but I do like sharing super new pieces in readings like this. To me, it just feels sort of exciting. Maybe you think so too, maybe not, I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to read it. It's titled, I'm Waiting for the Right Moment to Be Spontaneous. I like boys who paint their nails and girls who don't wear sensible bras. I always ask my therapist how she's been doing. I want to be honest about my sex drive. I want to put mirrors on every surface of my house so I can picture myself naked whenever I want. Whenever they give me those little cups to piss in, I get some on my hand. This is something I know to expect. Once I counted the legs of a dead centipede just to be sure. I want to write a poem where I'm not begging for something pretty to come from it. I have 4 little beautifully scienced pills that I eat every morning like a ceremony. They keep me predictable and parched. I like soup, so I tattooed soup on my arm. I like my sister, so I call her to harmonize with my comfort tone. Anytime my heart beats too heavy, I listen to Yo-Yo Ma's Bach Cello Suite No. 1 in G major. If you knew enough about me, you'd want me to call my mom too. And when my favorite sweater started to unravel at the seams, I kept wearing it anyway. Thank you.
Wow, Courtney, those were wonderful. I was really taken by your long poem and your love poem. They both really shook me. I so appreciate your willingness to get out there with your work and risk. Thank you. Irene. So Irene just raced back from teaching all day at Sun Valley. She's a 2nd grade elementary teacher, and we're grateful to have her. She did her MFA up at SNC, and she studied with Lee Herrick and Patricia Smith. She loves to travel, and her work is about race, culture, and tradition. So let's go. Warm welcome to Irene Ayala.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been some time, but I'm always grateful to be back at Sundance and to be able to read for you all. This first poem that I'm going to start off with is the opening to my manuscript, my working manuscript. And it really just invokes journey and identity. And I think it's really important that, we know where we come from and their story, because it is very much intertwined with yours, if you allow it to be. So this first piece is titled, The Meaning of My Name. As I dig into bones of land and ancestors, I have called forth ghosts behind closed doors in search of God and an exodus, forged a path from rajas, gutted, then stitched back together with hilo and black ink. An exhibition of scars on paper. Judas, self-named, knowing, Judas is Judas is Judas. Learning what silver coins can buy me. Nights full of owl laughter become more present as I quiver on the edge. Red sea shadowed by twilight and lost feathers splits under a full moon on the verge of spilling my secrets. What is the meaning of my name? X-rayed and exposed years of me in a yellow dress, zapatitos azul, zapatitos given to yesterday's past, enough xochitl to bloom in waves of green vine, dipped in desert gold, umbrellaed beneath rock. Truths found in stories, uncovered ruin and runes quilted in skin. Purpose becomes a stone in the waters of my body, naked and waiting. Mine to claim, to liberate in the knowing of my name. Judas is Judas is Judas. Immigrated and integrated into hollows lit from within. Girl on a pyre, freed and unleashed to find my own exodus. Driven by the ghosts who answer the call of bone and ancestors. Thank you. This next poem I'm going to read is one that I think really just resonates with me. We've all been seeing a lot of like fruit vendors on the side of the road and hearing some of the stories that happen with vendors on the side of the road. And so this one is called, I Pull Over for a Roadside Vendor. It's not because he reminds me of my father, who worked for pennies a day in Mexico. I never met that boy. But the sky is turning pink and he's reclined in a lawn chair. His baseball cap worn and used with the corner of the bill frayed from the pressure of his fingers. His faded jeans with the dust caught and stuck in the stitches creates a thin layer of lived-in dirt that never leaves even after the third or fourth wash. The air feels dry as I walk up to his truck. The smell of strawberries is mixing with the little tree's air freshener that dangles from his rearview mirror. The strawberries are plump and one becomes a shadow as I hold it to the sky. His smile widens as I grab a punnet, and all I can think is how much I hate the scent of royal pine and how as a child I never ate strawberries, but he's here every day selling them, cheaper than the stores, and he still has stacks of crates. I pull my arm back ready to throw them into the street, to watch their bodies explode into seeds on the asphalt, food for the seagulls overhead. But then I see his cooler under the table, a half-eaten turkey sandwich, and a bottle of water on top. I hear a small stereo play Leonard Skinner's Freebird. I bite into one, its sweet juice gushing down my chin. And this next song, I'm sorry, the title is called Desert Song. And so I really do think of it as a song for my mom. I think it's only fitting that I read this for her. Desert Song. The coyotes on the hill aren't afraid. They walk a slow canter across sidewalks that cut across their land, dens full of sleeping pups, desert rock, and owl laughter onto back porches. They sit under light bulbs and the false glow of a full moon. Their yips become long tunnel howls that catch on cactus thorn and tangle in the crooked branches and hollows of wind witches. They carry with them the desert's veil of barren earth, thickets of thorn and viper. Silent, they watch as I carry a bucket full of discarded eggshells, banana peels, and week-old pasta into the dried vegetable garden. Their eyes track my movement as I gather leaves to lay on top of turned soil. Their ears prick to the back and forth scratch of a three-pronged rake. They wait till I'm halfway back to the house to move, a glide into half-lit shadows. Tails flick north, before their snout and eyes sneak back into the half glow of the light bulb, their message clear. Follow us towards canyon walls and pink cactus flower. Could this be the reason the coyotes follow Mama at dawn as she walks her dog? A reminder of desert stars, snakeskin, and iguana tongue? I wonder if the coyotes could lead me into the dry mouth of the earth and warm and baked bone over sand and rock, harden my skin and feed water into cracked lips. Would I bloom in brush and thorn beds of pink cactus flower like her? This next one is also dedicated to another woman in my life, my grandma, who unfortunately is not here with us anymore. And this is called She'd Prepare Bodies for the Cornfields. It was Mama Maria's job to go enter the cornfields, to walk through the tough stalks of their stems, peel the husk off yellow beads and collect them into the folds of her skirt. She would take them to the well and drown them in water until they grew heavy. Laid them out to dry one after another until she had rows of dried out leaves. She'd spend days waiting for long blades to curl in on themselves, shorten their reach. Then she would gather them into piles, tie them with twine, button them into checkered sleeves, and zip them into faded denim. She'd prepare bodies for the cornfields under open sky, lift them onto wooden stakes to scare the birds. It was only when the men sent to burn the fields after harvest began to give her space to enter the maze alone did she begin to think about adding heads to the bodies. One for the man who cut ears of corn before harvest. Another for the men who woke her at night to make dinner as they scorched the earth and drained the sea. And more for the man who used his machete to rip the thin layer of her skirt and apron. This next poem is titled Weathered Hands, and it is after Paul Celan's poem, There Was Earth Inside Them. I wouldn't call her hands beautiful. The nails are flat and blunt, dulled by corn harvest and papaya's. The knuckles protrude from copper skin, and the palms are not soft as they pass over my forehead, grip my arm, cariño. They make me think of dry creek beds after the rain. There is earth inside them. You know, I just realized there's a theme for me going on right now, and it's all about the women in my life. And so this next poem is called Tia Morena Lost Her Name. I never knew her by a different name, this Morena from El Salvador. Dark eyes set in a narrow face, the same brown like her mama, frame thin and sharp, all edge is my tia, the one with a blunt tongue. Marina is what we call her. A slip made by a nurse, handwritten on the slip. An accident inked on paper. Her name spelled one way, but rolled and tasted on tongue, a sweet drink. Its thickness lost in the dark. Her wide smile welcomes you close to the edge where her sisters fell, all three, onto brown earth below. Their bones cracked and filled with brown clay, hardened under their skin, and the slip between words and smiles became a sharp edge where things stagger, afraid to fall. Their names forgotten and buried farther down dark throats, where stuck they can't climb from behind tongue. Maybe that's what started a war on tongue between sisters who do not see the brown tie that knots them together, engulfs dark. Or it could be that Marina let slip what no one would say. We share not one name between fathers, not one. This is the edge Marina pushed her sisters to. This edge split her mouth, flooded red, birthed a forked tongue. This she did on a night we do not name. Cradled under the moon, the arms of brown grandmothers tried to hold her, stop the slip, but they could not reach her beneath the dark groves. They could not reach her beneath the dark. She did not want to stop, close to the edge as she was. She rather jump than slip. Over she went the lip, and then the tongue, now too, began to darken into brown, clotted rust. It had nothing else to name, nothing to cause a slip or slit on tongue. She was born in the dark, over the edge. Morena, brown-skinned. It is not her name. Okay. This next poem I have for you is titled Moon Eater and is after Phaelita Hicks's A Tale from the Hood. Standing in the hollow archway of living room and empty closet, I guide the flashlight's fluorescent disc over the exposed skin of my underarm. Search for the green vein of a snake in my body, the bone rattle of cock and chicken under the thick masa of sweetmeat, in a curious attempt to find the blood-tinted mandarina. Will I find the riverbed of my father or the desert song of my mother? Will I see the head of the bull with doe eyes and hear the hoot and howl of pregnant nights full of sage and pine? I press the light deeper into my skin, elbow bent like a door hinge, and wait for the light to pierce flesh, wait for the apparitions of blood and spit to cast their shadows onto the midnight walls of my house, to illuminate my brown skin, my body, my blood-tinted mandarina. No, a flashlight won't do. I must become a moon eater to get what I'm owed. One of the, I think maybe fourth to last poems I'm going to share with you is a triptych, and it is titled Ciega. 1. Faith is a blindfold over the eyes of Eve and Ivy, one I wore at birth. My head dipped in waters blessed holy, neck wrapped in cadenas de oro. 2. Dios te bendiga. Words written in hymn pluck at the air held in my body, a chord para rogar bendiciones y arrullo. A gospel, ready to sing over banana leaves and atol. 3. Mama's voice glows behind missal. Do you believe? Her voice raises high in brujeria at the clumsiness of her children. Raises un grito to her family, un llanto pa su hermano, y Diosito lindos for her grandchildren. A song in the music of her El Salvador. 4. I come to Mama's house when the pews sit empty and my eyes grow heavy, with honey and sap, eyelashes caught in the sticky drip of honeycomb. Ciega, until Mama's hands cradle my face and clean the sticky sweetness from my eyes, one lick at a time. This next poem I'm going to read for you, I can find it, is titled Straighten Out, Make a Straight Line. And it was inspired not only by my work as a poet, but my work as a teacher, and my own experience going to school. Straighten out, make a straight line. The letters of my name put me in line at the front next to another young girl. I count the pockets of air in her spine. Listen to the talk and noise realign, bone under skin as it shifts and unfurls, letters of my name that put me in line, lineups 1, 2, and 3 before they combine our faces, nose, lips, and eyes, braids and curls, and count the pockets of air in our spine. Backpacks heavy with books and notes outline time and place put together in a world where letters of my name put me in line next to her, but behind you, buried sign of a past we cannot forget. Schoolgirl, I count pockets of air in the spine to hear the crack, moan, and sigh of bloodlines found in history on repeat as it hurls the letters of my name over a line to count the pockets of air in my spine. Okay, I think I have time, possibly, for maybe two more. And this next poem was inspired by Brian Turner, who's a dear friend and the director of the MFA program that I came from. And it's called Tongueless with Teeth in Your Throat. The cruelty of being tongueless should flood your mouth with salt and copper, create teeth in the back of your throat, bones to shred meat and thigh. Fuel for the voices in your head that beat into your skin and allows for your eyes to fish with nets and catch rock, sand, and gold. Keep you from drowning in your own spit. And this last one I'm going to share with you is the closing poem to my working manuscript, also titled after my working manuscript. It is called Virgencita Americana. And it goes, there exists a gulf inside me, surrounded by land, buried beneath my breastbone, where I walk the edge of dirt roads that call me lost and child, nena de Dios. A yo and an I that grows in both tuna and nopal, thin river and thorn. Splintered edge of a door splits me and I see me, girl and fire, take root, put roots down in the ground, grass roots, rooted in desert gold and arena. And still, I and yo are alien to this place of mine and mío and mine, nena de Dios and girl and fire, and always, who is this me that sits buried beneath bone and breast, tarred and feathered, Malinche, Llorona, Pocha, lost and child, girl on fire, overcome with the need to be, ser, overcome with the need to sit and listen to the happenings that do not belong to me, only half concern me. I am speaking of DACA and immigration, walls and green trucks, and I am still lost child, nena de Dios, the world insisting it is not mine or mío or mine, and yet yo and I walk the edge of dirt roads, cumbia kings thumping a rhythm against waves of glass, tethered to old glory, Chevys, baseball mitts, and white picket fences. American dreams drown in them, birthed a gulf in me and left me to walk the edge of dirt roads, knitted with hilo across marigolds, canyon walls, and pink skies. Thank you very much.
Wow, Irene, that's wonderful. I was so struck by that line, coyotes lead me into the dry mouth of the earth. I had to write it down.
Thank you.
Those are some strong poems. I can't wait till you get the manuscript in the world. That was lovely stuff, really potent. Everyone that's on the call, I'm sure, is rooting for you. Thank you both two fine women have started us off. All right, George, you're gonna take the microphone now. I first read George Perrault's poetry many moons ago. Black Rock Press did a beautiful book of his, and another one, and About Our Countries, his fourth collection. He's received multiple honors from both New Mexico, Montana, Utah, and he's had awards in Nevada and Washington. He was a finalist for the Backwaters Prize, and he's a great poet. So let's give a warm welcome to George Perrault.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for doing this again. Thanks to Emily and Sundance. And I'm glad I was preceded by two poets with such graciousness and kindness, because the last 5 years or so have been very, very hard. And some of the things I'm going to read tonight will reflect that. But thank you. You got us off to a good start. This first poem is called July, Great Basin. A season of lightning, names flaring haphazardly, the gold fire, Rock Farm, and Canyon River. 2 years ago, the whaleback burned to the edge of Eagle Lake. Ephemerals have returned, grasses, scrubs are next. They opened my sister back east, glued up the lung, said, stage 4. So without treatment, maybe 6 months. Efficacious drugs, add another Christmas. But not 6 weeks out. She can't breathe, down to 6 hours, as she holds for her oldest son and his wife and a granddaughter named Vera, after the maiden aunt she slept with all those early years, where she woke bleeding, terrified, because no one had ever told her how these things work. The kids in the air from Colorado, where he prescribes burns against the likes of the hog fire north of here. 5,000 acres gone, zero containment, the air full of ashes. 3,000 miles away, and I can't sidestep the plague's restrictions, find a plane in time. But she nods, okay, harboring her breath, luminous with equanimity, a jade cicada, the trees here buzzing with them, while north, the ponderosa explodes in what passes for death. This next one I'm going to read is for my youngest brother who lived close to my sister in Hartford, Connecticut toward the end of his life. He was significantly autistic and had a difficult life. It ended up all right in Hartford. Hartford is where Wallace Stevens lived. And every day he would walk from his house to his job as an insurance executive. And it was a 2.5 mile walk each way. And along the route, people have placed stones carved with each of the verses from his great poem about Blackbird. So there's some reference in here to that. This poem is going to be in the next issue of The Meadows, which Lindsay Wilson runs up at Truckee, and I hope you support it and send them work. Editor, it's a tough job, and we're so thankful to them. The poem is called Early One Morning. My youngest brother died soon enough. It was still yesterday back home. A day with 13 stones strung out like beads along Asylum Avenue. I'd asked my brother how he was doing, and he said, I'm dying. And he wondered about heaven in a simple act of faith, for that's how he was built. He'd lived long enough, there was a word for what he was, a word honored among some tribes. And there was some Latinate for how he'd pass, like fruit never shaken from the limb. He'd saved up silver and gold and left it all to the church after paying for a pantomime, smoke drifting from a thurible, as in days dressed with cassock, surplice, or sage-smudged nights in a sweat log chanting Oiseau noir, in search of something else. There was a ferry to the island, to and from a graveyard, familiar as the classic. My brother had arranged for a wooden cube, lowered into an earthen cube, where his wife was waiting, and like blackbirds, we hovered on our wings. I think most of us have consigned loved ones to the elements, ceremonies which help little, but then the ceremonies are over, and it gets worse. Today, in the awful quiet, no scrambling for scriptured motes or music to be rung, the flowers disassembled by themselves, This guest and that, like churn behind the boat, have spent themselves on shore. There comes a hush to village ways, that old dance of news and meal. Clouds are counting every now, and sky has softened near to lead. Sean, you always ask for something new. So here's a brand new poem called The Gift Horse. My son's driving this extra car from the Sierra to New Orleans, hoping it still has another year, maybe tide him through this patch. We pull off the road at night to pour in some oil just outside of Berkey, and I think about this city park, the kids playing tag, the preschool afternoon where he chooses a big elm as his base and asks his little sister, "What's yours?" My base, she laughs, is the color green and falls down upon it like the sky. We move on from here a dozen times, so they're always each other's home until the day she died. All right. Sorry about that. This poem, I think, speaks for itself. It's called A Friend Asks About Loss. Clouds to the south, venticular and tinged with dawn. 2 ranges and a basin away, his dad has died, and he wonders when absence abates, then fears instead that it might, that sledge and stone find sleep at last under time's duvet. As our histories rise, particular but predictable, mother, father, brother, sister, wife and child, all of that, and no wiser noon or night. Each day pressed into fossils to fuel our long journey, in quiet or ache, only to reach this last station where pain is the deepest gift we can give. Let's have a breath. A short poem called Infrasonic. We assume silence to be nothing, though the deep basins ring with their hidden a cappella, and across the savannah, giraffes and elephants nod to what we'll never know. When the cat next door was dying, mine would walk over and sit beside all day. The hollow of an empty church, a hay barn late at night, a quietude. This next poem is a fairly long one. So long, I had to bring my daughter in to speak some lines. The way one does. This poem is called Walking the Dry Ditch. Easter's late this year, and catkins will have long set sail, but the new water should be running again, clean, free, the gates filling each field with a smile, and this mud-pressed leaf might become, perhaps in a million years, another fossil. Ginkgo biloba, a survivor from the Jurassic, its dichotomous venation as ancient as fern. So I'm trying for the long view here, how healthcare will break into flower when the us becomes as sacred as me. Thinking the mass in my wife's throat is probably follicular and not anaplastic. Seeing the wind ensemble, play through the death of 5 kids at their high school, the suicide, the overdoses, and now 2 murders. How I was glad I'd forgotten my glasses, how everything's like Monet, down to the smear on the trumpeter's cheek. And it's opening day at Quemado again, that funeral of 3 girls after their pickup rolled coming back from the county fair. Youngest dying in the ambulance, held by her mother, a responding EMT. There comes a time, amazing grace will make you sick to your stomach when you have to punch off fire and rain, pull over the Springsteen, Philadelphia. But I'm trying for the long view today. How sometimes those medical stories my wife watches are true. All the sassy nurses and heroic doctors. Odds are, even if the ones I've loved the most, they just went into the hospital and died. It's not always like that. Sometimes parts will avail as an offering, and then too, at Hiroshima, the ginkgos came back from the blast. These remarkable beings, 3 times as many DNA letters as us, their meristems pulsing new growth, keeping each one young, though some of them are older than Christ. So maybe this wife doesn't have to die, and this child doesn't have to die before I do. And no doubt a few others will break their father's heart. Still, this one is telling me if Woody wrote Departie, it probably was twangy. But Jimmy LaFay, see where he folds in some accordion and bass, that penny whistle brimming with the Gaelic of midnight rain on cobblestone, and that catch in his voice, the phrasing, sure it's from the 40s, but really nothing has changed. Both sides of the river, we die. It's how death hunts us, like rustlers, like thieves. So welcome to the long view, where clouded leopards still haunt the ginkgo forest, secret and nocturnal as the human heart. Listen in those deep ravines where the night cries out with music so like our own, songs to shoulder each other's pain, songs that without an us, there's no reason for me. I'm going to read 2 more poems. This next one is called Even Small Kindness. The title comes from a Jack Gilbert poem, The Abnormal Is Not Courage. He talks about how just keeping on is what takes courage, not the marvelous act, not Macbeth that finds even small kindness. My wife looks at me askance, picking up a hitchhiker alone, your age. Well, it was morning. Back road through the mountains, wind and spitting snow. Got on better with the passing grace. Slipping 5 to the homeless guy, winter sidewalk, too tired to ask. Or a side trip to the campsite. Maybe drop a scarf, another pair of socks. All from that letter 2 weeks after the draft physical. A country kid too dumb to play queer or consider the conscientious out, now gifted a 1Y exemption, told if Charlie hits the beach at Coronado, we'll call you in, just for some rash that came and went. So give thanks to the universe. But in God's truth, there was some doc culling the fodder, maybe drafted himself. Here's enough any excuse. Another mama gets to breathe out. An anonymous kindness that decades later opens the door on a ride out of Cisco Weeks before snowmelt starts sliding to the river, birch buds opening button by button on the still dark porches of spring. And this last poem I'm going to close with is somewhere between a prayer and a meditation. I guess I don't do enough. For beach, really all I do is write poems. At Eagle Lake in the early fall. Leaving Ponderosa and Fur to walk out into grass knee-high with summer bent low as October nears. 2 boats drift fishing for rainbow. The lake calling, blue as an archangel. But not more than this verge, reefed with whitened shells, remnants of an earlier edge, thick as galaxy among autumn's scattered growth. These harvested mullein and thistleclaps now bleach the final glory. All cathedrals of Temesa, stems only green at a distance, raising their blazoned candelabra. Gold and linen coalesced, the color of worship. Marsh hawks gliding owl-faced and trailing white. As I ask, for years in fields more desolate and fallow, the slow rise and fall of waters, a dance less stately than mountains, but still fire and flood, the blink of an eye. Ask to marry this morning's headlines, human remains of a missing woman found. Ask to lie in paling sun and be everything else. Let something eat the unfound in me, beetle, fox, or crow, the air and wind itself, the hungry anything, and let me be there, earth at last. Thank you so much.
Thank you, George. That was lovely. I wrote down on the still dark porches of spring, a beautiful line, and I think everybody's been having prayers and meditations this afternoon, so you don't have to worry about not doing it enough. You're all doing it. It was a fine reading. Thank you all for making this second in our month so special this afternoon. And I want to thank all of our audience who tuned in online. I want to give a big shout out to Emily for being our MC today and this month. It's always surprising to me and so refreshing to listen to such conviction coming across the wire. I know it's difficult, but we'll get back to in-person meetings soon. So thank you again, and tune in next week if you're free, Wednesday afternoon at 4. I'll see you soon. Thanks again for everything.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Ciao.